during a recession, if people want to be purchasing luxury items and they realize that they can't or they shouldn't be buying luxury, but they would still like to have that luxury brand, for example, what ends up happening is that they're going to be purchasing something at a much lesser price point, but still from that brand. So what ends up happening is that if you're not buying a designer handbag, you might be buying a designer lipstick instead. So case in point, you can see a lot of this happening on the market where instead of buying a Birkin, you might buy an Hermes lipstick instead. This is actually something that is called the lipstick effect. And I think that this is slowly showing up in the art market. So instead of buying maybe like the really big ticket items, and we can sort of reference this with the Art Basel Hong Kong price list, what ends up happening is that there's a specific market that is now opening up. You can see that there's a lot more purchases within maybe the $50,000 and under range. So what happens if and when the little luxuries become the engine of the entire market? And what does that mean for artists who are wanting to learn how to price for their work? The lipstick effect comes from consumer psychology, and that during downturns, people still want to treat themselves, which is like totally understandable. If you think back during COVID, people obviously weren't purchasing a whole lot because we were all at home. You might be purchasing a whole bunch of cosmetics instead, skincare, because we are still wanting to have those little bits of luxury or at least normalcy during COVID, and that you're buying other things instead. And rather than like splashing out on a car, and like certainly you couldn't, and you wouldn't be able to go and travel, you might end up buying again like luxury lipstick, Hermes, or you might be investing in cosmetics, something small, something indulgent, something that's achievable. And we're now seeing like similar behaviors within the art market. So again, when we're referencing, or if we're going to be referencing the art market price list from Basel Hong Kong 2025, there weren't I think the highest price that is listed was a $3.5 million yaoi kusama, which is a great number, right? But I think what there is indication is that at the middle tier, there is a $48,000 Louise Vuitton print. You know, we see so much of this being talked about in the industry where it's like, oh my God, there's this significant downturn. And I don't actually, it really kind of makes it seem like we're struggling in the art market, when I don't actually think that it's struggling whatsoever. And if for anything else, there actually might be a recalibration, or there might be a shift as to where people are wanting to go and spend their dollars. And actually, maybe a bigger recalibration is that who is wanting to buy. So we can, again, like case in point, I can actually go and open up a few websites that I've been looking at where I think that like these are important things to consider. So for example, so here is the price list that has been uploaded by the ArtNet, and you can see that there is the very large, big ticket items that we kind of are expecting to see here. So for example, the 3.5 million yaoi kusama. And then as we scroll down, so of course, every single thing here is going to be based on a price bracket. And I would say that, you know, given the fact that Art Basel is only on for a few days, and this list is published actually quite quickly within the first couple of days during like the VIP fairs or like the VIP openings, I think that it does indicate that people are wanting to purchase. And I think that that indication is actually much more important than anything else. So this is what I was saying, that this is much more of a recalibration as to where people are wanting to and what they're willing to go and spend on. So we've come to this $50,000 to $99,000, so just under the $100,000 range. And you can see that this list is extensive. It's not a small list of what people are wanting to go and purchase. And then here is the list that is the $50,000 and under. And so this is actually kind of where I think it's quite interesting, because as this number or this list is to me quite healthy, you can also see that there are specific things that, like I was mentioning before, that there is a $48,000 Louis Bourgeois that was sold. There are a list of other artists that have been sold within and underneath this range. And you can see here, Sanyu has been sold. There is quite a lot of sales within that, so that's really healthy. And then at the lowest of the range is, which I actually find this to be quite interesting as well, sorry, this list is quite healthy, is that it's $600. So, and this is an ink piece. So this is effectively an ink on paper. And I think this is, again, like where it's very interesting, because it's sort of indicating that maybe Prince works on paper. There is an increase in interest of buyers. So why I'm saying this is that you can see that there was this talk about Prince that may be perhaps booming. Especially you can see here in something like in New York, where there is an indication of medium strength, meaning that there's interest in people wanting to participate. And what is really nice about this article is that, again, it gives you some indication of prices, which is something that obviously we really like to know, because it indicates as to how healthy the market is. We also really want to know what kind of a price point this fair is going to be set at. So again, here you can see the big names that are listed. You've got your Kiki Smiths, you've got your Donald Judds, you've got your Bourgeois, and then the prices range from $5,000 to $140,000. So, I think what we see here is that we're no longer necessarily talking about the big ticket items, which are in the millions, but we are still talking about these really big names, which is why maybe perhaps this shifting or recalibration and or referencing lipstick effect is a very interesting and apt lens to look through. So I'm going to actually make that into like one more point as to why I'm saying this, is that even Hauser has listed that they were going to be at one of these print fairs, and that they are again going to be showing things, showing pieces at the $5,000 to $150,000 range. Again, we can see the really big names that are listing here. So I actually really do think that there is an indication of a recalibration as to who is wanting to buy, and actually maybe that segment is going to be where much of the sales are coming through. Is it as like catchy as saying that, we have a single buyer that's wanting to go and buy a $69 million print? No, but I do think that there is no slowing down of the market, that there is a lot of noise. And understanding what the price bracket is, I think might be more interesting to go and talk about than say like, oh, people are only wanting to go and buy paintings, or they're really only wanting to go and buy conceptual art. Because I think that when you're talking about a specific price point, which is of course something that I get asked about a lot, how should I price my work? And understanding that the business model or the gallery model is somewhat of an outdated model, that we're not necessarily referencing the way that economic or like the economy currently is operating, because the gallery model was set up actually quite a few decades back, and we're not considering the saturation of the market, how many artists are coming out from art school, and all the different classifications of artists. So what I'm saying is that when you're thinking about your prices, and people are saying that, oh, there's a downturn in the market, so does that mean that I need to go and lower my prices? I think that there might be a misunderstanding in how people are wanting and wishing to go and spend and what they're actually buying. And it's about understanding how to position your work in a specific place. So in TPP, we talk about how you need to go and figure out what your operating costs are. So you need to know what your fixed costs are, and then you need to know what your what your other spends are, because your costs and your price are not the same thing. So I think it's really important for us to go and sit back and think about, am I actually clear on the price range of my work? Where should it fit within? So like which segment? Again, these are things that I do talk about quite often, which is, do you know which market that you're fitting into? Are you in the academic stream or are you in the commercial stream? And does that align with the current behavior of our collector? What does it mean to be affordable luxury in a quote unquote slowing market? And I want my work to live there? Have I written off editions, prints, or works on paper because I thought that they aren't serious enough? Do I feel pressure to price like where I think the top of the market is, even when the middle of the market is where movement is currently happening? And what does it look like to create access without devaluing my practice? I hear this so often. And this is especially prevalent when I'm talking about something like social media. And so I think that without understanding the psychology of your collector, what do they want to see? What kind of information do they want more from you in order for them to start inquiring about your story, your pieces, to then therefore understand the pricing? Like, do you really know who that audience is? Then we can actually start opening up that conversation. So what I'm trying to say here is that the lipstick effect is telling us that people don't stop buying. They just get a lot more intentional. So instead of like the next time when you're reading something and you're thinking, oh my God, the market is dead, ask yourself, is it just alive in a different place than where it is that I'm looking? And maybe it's because now what people are looking for in their $1,200 edition or their $10,000 edition is the equivalent to buying a lipstick. And maybe that's exactly what you're reaching for, and or that's exactly what the collectors are reaching for right now. I hope you found that to be useful. Thanks.